Welcome everyone to Dive Talk. This is, I guess a long time coming episode. We were out for a month, basically at this point.
But we were busy.
I know. Yeah, and I know. And I think we owe it to people listening to the show to talk about all the things that we did. I mean, you did way more than me. You were gone a lot more, but I was gone a lot. Like over the last month. So just what do you do, Woody, over the last 30 days?
I tell you, it's been unbelievable. I have not been out of the water. That's how I want to start it. Now, it's all been instruction related. First, I led a trip. That's one of the things I do for Sea Ventures. So I was certifying a lot of divers, both all the way from beginning recreational level to, it was an advanced rec trip. I'm already forgetting what we did. So that particular trip for Sea Ventures was already certified divers, and we took them on a 4-day rec trip. So you're diving rec in South Florida. A lot of them got their deep rec and advanced rec specialties. That happened to be through SSI. Yep. That's our dive shop is affiliated with SSI. So that was just a ton of fun. Amazing conditions, pretty high current, and we had a few episodes in that where dive masters in training really learned, are you ready? Because, you see, one of the things we talked about is just because we're experienced and we may feel like current or situation is not that difficult, you've got people that can take these advanced classes. Think about it. After their 4th certification dive, on their 5th or 6th or 7th dive, they can get certified to do rec or deep or advanced rec. And we were in some pretty high current, so really, really needed the assistance of those dive masters in training to make sure some of those folks were able to get back to the line or get back to the boat.
For sure.
So that happened, and then was our trip.
While you were on your rec trip, which I was super jealous of that. Doug Eversole invited me to come down to cave country and do my my Tec Light, cave training. So I started my cave training, which was kind of like part 1 of 2 of cave diving, like the full CCR cave diver certification. So I went there and we did like 10 cave dives, all on the goal line, just respecting the standards. But essentially what that certification does is that it allows me to go into caves and up to 10 minutes of decode, just like my regular Tec 40 certification that I have for rebreathers. This time around, I actually can go in caves.
Yes.
So same thing. And obviously we learn a bunch of skills just setting it up for the actual cave training, because I was like, what am I doing this weekend? And I remember because you were like, why don't you just wait? Like, you have your cave training in a couple weeks. Just wait and do it all at once. Yep. And I'm like, but what am I going to do this weekend? Like, just be here and actually spend time with my kids?
Right.
No.
And watch all of our posts on Facebook about diving.
Exactly.
But that's awesome. So you got that knocked out. And doesn't that really change your level of diving when you become cave certified? I mean, all the classes you've ever taken, when you have to do multiple tasks in a cave that can easily be silted out, your skills really increase.
For sure. And that every cave is different, right? I mean, it's the same preparation and swimming and things that you do, the way you tackle the cave changes dramatically from one cave to another.
Absolutely.
Right?
Some have flow, some don't.
Yeah, you're a Ginny. It's like just get in, right? Mm-hmm. However you can, stay out of the current as much as you can and get in. Whereas a peacock, you're at 60 feet. There's no deco ever. Like, you can be in there forever.
But if you touch that silt in peacock, boy, it goes nowhere.
It's a mess, right? So really, really enjoyed that. And then I came back. I was home for like a day, and then we got together and head out to double training. I guess we had. It was a combination because first, me and David were helping with Megan's and Dave's CCR training, right?
They were just becoming certified on a CCR. But before we jump into that one, I want to touch on one more thing on your cave experience. I don't want to close that yet. I want our listeners to know that the areas that we're talking about, we are blessed in that just 4 or 5 hours away from here, from Atlanta, is what we call High Springs, Florida. And for those of you that don't know, that's known as Cave Country. There's even a dive shop there called Cave Country. There's many, many cave systems there, and they're some of the biggest in the world. And a lot of the Florida aquifer system is coming up through those caves. So it's really interesting to learn there. You have very high flow caves. What that means for those of you who aren't cave divers is when you're swimming in, you're basically swimming in against, in some cases, like an underwater river.
Yeah.
So you are really having to work to get in. But then on the way out, you get this incredible ride on those high flow caves.
Yep.
But then during your same training there, you could experience just 15 minutes from there a cave with no flow. Now, the advantage is there's no flow, so it's easier to get in. The disadvantage is, boy, if you get near the bottom, that fine Florida silt, if you even look at it wrong, that stuff silts out the whole cave, which is part of your training, right? You could easily get lost where you silt it out where you can't even see your computer. That's why it's so important to train, learn the 5 rules of cave diving, which I know you did, and never deviate from them. So you had quite an experience on learning there. Then after going through all of that, now you all know what we're talking about because we're probably going to refer to them again in a few minutes. Then go ahead. Then we started our next, I think it was a 10 or 12 day journey.
Yeah, so I got back on Sunday. You got back on Sunday too from that trip to the Keys. And then on Monday, we were back in the classroom with Megan and Dave doing their CCR training, getting started on their path to becoming a tech diver, specifically going the CCR route, the rebreather route. And this episode is about going tech. And, eventually we're going to get to talk about that. But I wanted to give everyone kind of an update on what we've been doing. So on Monday, I helped out. We did the classroom training. We set up their gear, their rebreather. Dave had a brand new one. So that always takes like 3 hours to set everything up and make sure everything is good. Very jealous of the new, improved.
By the way, the new one. It's a KISS, a Spirit.
Yep.
And what we're talking about the new, for those of you that are in the know, the new KISS Orca Spirit is now set up in a way that they call it modular, basically. It changed the position of the counter lungs a little bit. So they mount in a way where the scrubbers can either be back mounted or side mounted. So in other words, the new KISS Orca Spirit, if you order the modular one, easily can be switched to a sidewinder. Yeah. So now you're kind of getting 2 rebreathers at once. And for those of you that don't know, the sidewinder means everything is side mounted, even the scrubbers on the back. So you have nothing on your back, man.
Tiny, holes in caves.
And it's exploded, the Sidewinder for cave divers worldwide, really.
Yeah. So anyway, I got in the pool with them. We did, the exercises in the pool. And then I only had Tuesday off, which, David Vigiano, who has been in the show before, he was then helping in the pool, with them doing their confined water stuff. Then Wednesday, we just headed out for 10 days.
That's right.
Epic, training and diving, starting with, the guys, Megan and Dave, finishing their dives, which was Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Friday ended with epic dives in West Palm Beach, right?
Yeah. So the journey, let's let them know what we're talking about. The journey, that track that I guess I sort of set up, and you guys came through that certification level with me, and now they did as well. But you guys are pretty advanced and were helping a great deal. The normal track is we do confined water work first with academics for 2 days, so pool.
Yeah.
Then we got on the road and we traveled back to that High Springs area that has some caverns, Blue Grotto, very conducive with decks. Now that's their first open water dives. They do about 4 open water dives in there. So they're doing a lot of skills in there.
Yeah, Blue Grotto is a great place for training.
Good visibility, no current. Awesome. Always access to the surface.
Yeah,
but it has depth.
And you do have some exercises you have to complete as part of, PADI, Tech 40, like the rescue and there's just some things that trying to do it out in the open water, drifting.
And all the agencies have these same skills. They happen to have gotten certified under PADI Tech 40 CCR, but they really mirrors what IANTD does and a lot of the others.
TDI, yeah.
So after the Blue Grotto, now they're not certified yet, but they're now ready to experience South Florida drift diving. Yeah. And South Florida drift diving, meaning Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, is some pretty serious drift diving. Like you can have high current. but unbelievable marine life experience, which is one of the reasons a lot of people want to go tech, in particular why they may want to go closed circuit rebreather. Because, I mean, right away we saw bull sharks. Remember?
Those sharks
They'll
were
come
the
right
biggest
near
I've
you.
ever seen.
And it's
awesome.
amazing that you're on the rebreather. They really will get closer.
Yeah.
But those first couple of days, because that's when that storm stuff was kind of coming in, some pretty high current. So day one of those 2 drift dives we had with Pura Vida in West Palm, incredible marine life encounters, but pretty, it was pretty mild.
No, yeah, like the one
That's
day.
right. The first day was mild.
Yeah, when we went to Governor's Walk, on that
Governor's
dive,
Walk's wreck.
we always get blown out of that wreck. Like you have to hang on for dear life. This time around, it was like no current. I couldn't believe it.
Zero. There was not even barely any drift. It was so
amazing.
weird, amazing. You could just sit there on the wrecks.
Yes.
No current whatsoever. It was actually weird to have to swim. Governor's Walk wreck off of West Palm Jupiter is like you drift
4
into
wrecks,
3,
right? Or 3 or 4 wrecks in a row.
3 or 4 wrecks in a row.
Yeah.
Perfectly aligned from the south to north normal current. Although the current, as mild as it was, actually switched directions, which is very rare in South Florida to go from north to south. So we actually had to swim to the next wreck.
Yeah.
But it was unbelievable pristine conditions.
It was awesome. And then the next day, they did their graduation dive.
Which there's basically very minimal skills.
Right. They have to fire their SMB, I believe, is the last thing because they do it in every dive. But a lot of the skills have been completed at that point. So it's just having fun.
That's right.
Which is great.
So that was actually the same day. They finished that on that same day because we did 2 dives, right? So that was the 8 that they needed total. So day 1 of the South Florida portion, they're done with their certification. Now the next day, conditions started to change.
Yep.
The current was absolutely back, and you wouldn't think in 24 hours, but in 24 hours in South Florida, that's an eternity. It went from no current to here comes the ripping current again. Now, what did we do, though, on that? We switched back to open circuit. Why, Gus? Why did we go back to open circuit?
Yeah, so as part of the trip that we planned, 3 of us on the trip were open water instructors, and we're trying to get our specialty, instructor certification on rec and deep.
Yes.
So we had to go back in open circuit according to the standards from SSI to complete our specialty instructor, certification. Open water exercise is part of it because there's a bunch of other things you have to complete. But
that's right. So you had to basically teach skills.
Correct.
In South Florida drift diving, deep and rec. And I think the learning lesson there was, wow, open circuit, you do not have a lot of time, and you're experienced divers.
Yeah.
Right? Can you imagine taking the students down to have to do those skills? And by the way, those skills involve tie-offs with lines, involve firing surface signaling devices, and you can see, and that was what I was really trying to convey during that, you don't have a lot of time. Like, you have 10, 15 minutes max, and you're watching these people at the same time. So it's pretty serious.
And we happen to be on the deep boat. So the place,
perfect for what we needed to do.
The recs and the deep exercises that we did, we chose, we did it at 90 feet.
Yeah.
So it was by the time we were at the boat and we were going to start our exercises, I looked at my thing and it was 1,800 PSI. I'm like, what is going on?
1, 2
We've been
skills
down for 10 minutes.
That's it.
It was.
But imagine now. But
you get used to the CCR. It's
You do, but as learning to be the instructor, I think the most important point was, and I think you all three's eyes opened up that was amazing that we all got through that. Imagine now if you guys as the instructors had students, right? So it's really, really
it was good learning for sure.
Good learning on that. Then after that, we
went to Fort
migrated.
Lauderdale hoping that we get to dive a little bit south, but after a day or two we just couldn't make it work, so we decided to
weather blew up 6 to 9 foot seas, so that was that. We had to cancel, and then we all migrated back up to High Springs, Florida. Mm-hmm. More training, right? And this
finished
time
my cave training, right?
Gus finished up his cave training.
Yep. Which was great, by the way, that I did it in 2 parts. Like I did the Tech Light, whatever, the first part of it, because it really helped me. It was the first time I was diving twin side-mounted LP85s, which are humongous. Because my cavern training, I just did it with a 40 cubic feet aluminum, you know, as my bailout.
But gas planning in a cave, you
and
needed
as your
more.
gas plan, you're like, you know what? I'm going to play it safe. LP85's massive, right? So the first part of it was just dealing with that, like how to set it up correctly so I can reach my reels and all my things too. So by the time we went back and finished cave, like I already had it down at that point. So it was a lot easier.
You looked great.
Yeah, we did a few dives on the caves, get the cave certification, and then we focus in Normoxic.
So then they became and David became Normoxic, which basically means that they're now diving a trimix with helium, so that they are now able to dive to 200 feet. That's their new depth limit.
That's right.
But somebody else also was getting a certification. Finally, I got to train with you, right? Because I was their Normoxic instructor, but I was learning to be an instructor in Normoxic. I'm already a CCR instructor, but that advanced me up to Normoxic. So I taught it with Doug Ebersol as my instructor trainer. So it was a great experience for me as well. I was fortunate to have as my 2 students, Gus and David, because they made my job very easy. They knocked out all of the skills, frankly.
It was fun.
Very easily. They did fantastic. And that involved also, though, classrooms for a few days each day. A lot of presentation stuff that we went over.
And that's what we did. And that's what we did in Fort Lauderdale, because the weather was incorporating. So we're like, okay, let's just do all the classroom stuff. Took advantage of that.
And a little bit at Doug's house, because he lives closer up. And then we finished the water portion of your Normoxic. Then after that, all the certification was done. You guys are Normoxic certified. Everybody that was with us, you, David, me, and Doug, were all cave certified. Then what did we do?
So one of the things that I've talked about, and I don't know if I talked about it in the show, where my wife asked me once, you know, what is the best diving in the world? Like, where is the one place everyone wants to go? And I said, well, that depends on the diver. Like, someone might think that the Great Barrier Reef in Australia is the mecca of diving, and somebody might think that, you know, the Oriskany, the USS Oriskany, is the place where they want to go. Like, it all depends on what you're trying to do. For me, I always thought that Eagle's Nest in Florida, as a cave diver, is the mecca of diving. Like, that's
like
where
the black belt, some people call it. The black belt of cave diving.
It's called the Mount Everest of cave diving. And so after we were all certified Normoxic, and, you know, we were all cave divers at that point as well, certified, then Doug said, well, if we go and we don't go into the cave, because the cave is pretty deep, I think it starts like 200, over 200 feet, 200 plus. If we stay in the cavern and we don't go over 200, you're all certified cave divers, you're all certified Normoxic divers, we can do it safely. Like, let's go and do it. And Doug has been there. You had never been there. David had never been there. I've never been there. Boy, that was epic.
Boy, that thing is epic.
Wow.
You know, that is the way to start it. We've never been there. You guys are relatively new cave divers, so I've got about, 45 or so outside of training under my belt. So we got to get a taste of it, because the cavern zone there, it's a massive cavern. This is not a little cavern.
No, it's like you can't see the ends of it. It's
massive.
Like you can fit 2 747s, and I mean, it's humongous.
But it makes you want to do the cave there eventually, right? But you can tell, and we got a lot of respect for it. And Doug certainly told us, look, guys, you need more experience before we go into the cave section there. So at least we got to do the cavern, and makes us want to go back and do more cave diving to get more experience before we would ever do the actual cave portion of Eagle's Nest.
Yeah, it was a great taste for, you know, the Mount Everest of cave diving. You know, you get to see kind of the 2 passages in the distance, you know, as you shine your light, and you know, who knows how far those go, but man, I really, that's the new goal for me. Like, I really want to go back there and do it for real. It is challenging when you think about the deco, though, because deco, as we know, it's, you know, you're just sitting there, and there's not a whole lot to see when you're decoing at Eagle's Nest, because, You just have a tunnel that goes all the way.
Yeah. One, not even 2 people wide.
So. Right. And, from the math that we did, if you are depth, like a 300, 310, whatever feet is, eagle's nest on the cave, is for every minute you spend at that depth is 5 minutes of deco. So just imagine just going in there for 10, 20 minutes. Now you're looking at 1 hour, 2 hours of deco. It's
that'd be like at 200 feet.
Yeah.
Now that is a perfect entree into what is tech diving.
Yes,
because
let's get into it.
You really kind of just touched on it.
Yeah. I want to know what's your definition of it, and then I'll tell you what I think it is, because I remember seeing this meme a long time ago in one of the scuba groups where somebody says, I don't know if you've seen the Steven Chowder, I think is his name, memes where it ends with change my mind. Like you make a statement and then you say change my mind. And the meme was, tech diving is recreational diving, change my mind, or something like that. It's like, it's the same thing. All diving is recreational diving. Unless it's commercial. That's the statement they were making. But what is tech diving for you?
Well, I had a conversation about this at DEMA with Georgia Hauserman. It was actually one of the sessions that she gave at DEMA. What is tech diving and how do you get into it? And what she asked me my opinion on some important points to talk about. And the topic was, how do we get more people into tech diving? That's right. That was the topic.
Interesting.
Which sort of sets up what is tech diving. So what I said to her is, I don't like the word to start with, tech diving. Doesn't make sense to me. Technical diving. All diving's technical. So the first thing that I told her, and she loved this, by the way, and she used it throughout her session, was, it's not technical diving. All diving is technical. It's diving for longer periods of time than the recreational level allows, such that you will exceed your no decompression limit. Silence, end of story. You no longer, when you are doing longer diving, I'm not even going to call it tech diving, you no longer are able to go directly to the surface without a decompression stop. I'm not talking about your safety stop. I'm talking about other stops, meaning you got to stop at a particular depth and wait for your computer to say you can now go up to the next level. Yep. And we don't have enough time in this show to talk about that topic in itself, because there's so many decompression models. And as you just learned in your pneumoxic training, you learned all about the Buhlmann model, which uses M values, so you can set up different profiles. Everybody has different theories on it. Which tissues are you on gassing deep? Which ones are you off gassing? What's the right profile? But the simplest way to understand it is, you can't go to the surface. If you do, you could and probably will have decompression sickness.
Yeah.
Outside of that, there's not much more to define it. The way you do longer diving than recreational diving, which I know is known as tech diving, depends. I mean, you may be using doubles, right? So one way is to do it on open circuit, but you're carrying more gas. One of those is known as doubles, which has an isolator. So you learn all about, do I use one tank at a time, both tanks at a time? What happens if one tank runs out and the other one doesn't? How do I air share when we're both on doubles? This is all open circuit. And then another path is the rebreather path. Two totally, completely different ways of diving longer than the recreational limits allow. I do think, just to complete my answer, then I certainly want to hear yours. I want to sort of conclude with this. I do think that it greatly enhances your understanding of anything related to the science of diving. Because the science of diving is really all about decompression models and what are the effects of pressure on your diving. Well, you get a taste of that as a recreational diver, but we don't really push those limits outside of your ability to go directly to the surface. Once you get into this type of diving, there's no room for error. You must know how to gas plan. You must understand the effects of pressure on your tissues and dive your plan, or you could suffer decompression sickness or even death. Mm-hmm. Finally, it's expensive. I'm just going to flat out say it. When you go into this realm, it takes more equipment, because after all, teaching people to scuba dive, I always tell people, really means you're teaching people how to use equipment that allows you to breathe underwater. That's what you're really teaching people in any dive class. You're teaching them how to use a gear to enable you to do that dive underwater. You already know how to swim. So this gear that we need to do this longer diving is just more expensive. Yeah. Especially when you get into rebreathers.
And there's more of it, more complicated.
There's more complicated.
Yeah.
But is it awesome? I dream about it. It's that
That's
awesome.
How awesome it is.
Okay, yeah. I literally am already craving our next deco dive, decompression dive. In our case, it's on the KISS rebreather. Yes. So that's my answer. And what's your answer?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I just feel like the line between recreational and tech ends where in recreational, I always felt that you never really talk about or getting to what to do. Like, how do you control your own fate? You can always go up, and of course, there are things you can do to mess yourself up. Like if you hold your breath going up from 60 feet or, 30 meters or 20 meters or whatever, and you hold your breath, you're going to blow your lungs up. Like there are things that are still super dangerous if you don't follow, the safety procedures. But for the most part, like I remember the nitrox class, when I took nitrox, which is one of the first class most recreational divers take, it's sort of like there's an MOD, don't go past that. It doesn't really go into detail about why you shouldn't or what happens if you it's sort of like you just analyze your tank.
It does a little. Give it credit. It does. It gives you all about CNS oxygen toxicity.
It tells you why you're trying to do that, but it never gives you the option to do. So here's how I see it. On the rebreather, we have a tank that is 100% O2. Something that beyond 20 feet or 6 meters, it's highly toxic, right? Like have a seizure and die toxic.
Yep.
And we take that to 300, whatever feet we want.
Yep.
Because we have just like a whale way beyond, level of knowledge and training and capability that we know what to do with a 100% O2 tank at any depth.
Yep.
And we're able to control that. And I feel like when you're in recreational diving, there's a lot of it like we're not going to allow you to do that. You can't do that.
Yes.
Whereas with technical diving, you can absolutely do that, but the way you do it safely is you have to do these 10 other things and carry these 10 other pieces of gear, and this is when you use those gears.
And you have to be able to do it without having the effects of narcosis. Now, I know you fell in love with a brand new gas, and that's also a part of what we're going to call tech diving.
Yes.
Helium.
Helium is awesome.
Awesome in terms of how you feel.
It was
but there's a helium penalty that you have to balance in terms of your decompression. So
that's true.
You learn all about that now. So now imagine you're learning about not only what you said perfectly, like, wow, I've got to know how to manage just gases that we already use.
Yeah.
But now I'm bringing in a third gas, helium. Okay, so why is it awesome, Gus?
Helium.
Why are you in love with it now?
Well, I just thought, like, when we were doing that dive at Beaufort, I believe, or was it? Yeah, it was Beaufort Springs, one of the places where we did it, and we had to do a bailout from 160 feet up, right, as part of the training. You switch to trimix, and it feels, even though you're at 160, our mix felt like we were at 60.
Yep.
So you feel amazing.
Which is known as your END.
Right.
Okay.
Your equivalent,
Your equivalent, I call it your equivalent NARC depth. How NARC do you want to feel?
Exactly.
You had a mix that you would only feel as NARCed as if you were on 60 feet on regular air.
Yeah, 20 meters for those of you listening
for most
overseas. Yeah. So you're at 160 feet, which is whatever that is, I guess around 50 meters or so, but making you feel like you're at 20 meters. So from 160 to 60 feet, it was amazing. So you feel amazing.
Total clarity, nothing.
Perfect. Like I know exactly what I'm doing. Once we got to 70 feet, we switched to our 50-50 tank.
That means 50%.
50% O2.
Air and 50% O2.
Yeah. Or 50% nitrogen, I guess, and 50% O2.
Right. 50% O2, 50% nitrogen.
Correct. Right. And then we finished our deco, and that was that. And yes, obviously you pay the penalty, and helium is a little bit more expensive, but
the penalty is that helium, for those of you that don't know, again, way too long to discuss this in depth, but what the helium penalty is, in short, is that it tends to dissolve into tissues quickly,
right,
but it comes out of tissues quickly. So it bubbles fast.
Yeah.
Those bubbles are absorbed pretty easily, so that's not such a big penalty, but it can give you a little bit more deco time than if you were diving without it. And that's a very argumentative point that could bring up a lot of emails. You don't need to do that, everybody. I don't have time to get into the real discussion of that helium penalty. I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Yeah, but trimix, which is helium, oxygen, and nitrogen on your tank, the combination of those three, is one of those things that is like this big question mark, this big I wonder what it is. It's just like air, but better. I don't know how to explain it, but I remember I came out of that and I'm like, why do we bother with air? Like, it's just because it's more expensive. It is mainly the reason. And obviously you pay the penalty for helium, but when it comes to deco, but it's just so much better.
And that's why you see that it doesn't make you narc. But what's really cool about this, which gets into technical diving, is when you are doing this normoxic diving up to 200 feet, you get a mix, typically, let's call it a 1640. That means, for everybody listening, because this is what is technical diving, well, now you just lowered the oxygen percent to 16% because you wouldn't be able to breathe more than that, or your PO2 would be too high and you could convulse.
Right.
But you can handle 16% oxygen up to 200 feet, so that we lower the oxygen percent, because your body only cares about the partial pressure of oxygen, and you bring in 40% helium, which is reducing the nitrogen or reducing what the balance of nitrogen and oxygen are in that tank.
Correct.
That does not have any narcotic effects. That's why you're bringing helium in, just so you feel not narked.
Yeah.
And then you're able to also lower your oxygen percent. So now you can dive deeper, completely safe. You're not going to be narked, and you're not going to have a PO2 issue where your partial pressure of oxygen is too high.
Yeah.
That's it in the simplest form I can explain on this show.
Yeah, so technical diving allows you to go beyond what are accepted recreational diving limits.
Which the standard is 130.
One accepted is 130 feet or 40 meters. You go beyond that. You want to go beyond that, you have to get into technical diving. You want to go into caves, for example, where you have to take multiple equipment that you probably don't need on open water. That is technical diving. You want to dive for longer than your no decompression limits. For example, if you dive down to 130 feet or 40 meters, your NDL, your no decompression limit time, is 5 minutes. That is your bottom time. Oh, but there's a cool wreck at 130 feet or 40 meters, and you want to check it out for 30 minutes, not 5 minutes. Well, now you're getting into technical diving. So essentially anything outside of the recreational diving limits is what I call technical diving. And what I wanted to do in this show is really spend the next 15, 20 minutes, whatever, talking about how can people get into technical diving. If they look at the limits they have, and they say, look, I want to dive deeper than 40 meters. I want to dive longer than the whatever, I'm doing right now. If they're looking at that and they're thinking about, how do I get into this?
Okay.
You mentioned doubles earlier. There's people that get into side mount. I know side mount is becoming very, very popular these days.
Well, you can do doubles on side mount. They're sort of two different things. The doubles has to do with carrying more air. The side mount has to do with, I like them on my side because it gives me better trim.
But obviously you're also carrying more air. Like I know a guy that I used to dive with, he dove, twin 120 steels, high pressure steels, side mount. So he was like, we did 3-4 dives, an open circuit, and he never switched tanks. Like there's no point why film, like 2 120 high pressure steals. So he was doing great. Then the other thing is obviously rebreathers. So here's the one thing I hear. We've received several emails, and thank you all of you who have reached out to us. Our email address is info@divetalkmedia.com. We have received several emails of people saying, you guys keep talking about rebreathers. They sound awesome. You're super excited about it. I mean, I am to the point. I'll admit it. I don't want to dive open circuit unless I'm teaching. Like, I still want to teach people how to dive safely, and I'll make the sacrifice of, diving
it's
open
awesome.
circuit.
It'll spoil you that way. Rebreathers are incredible.
It will spoil you. So if we are at that level where any fun diving that we do, we want it to be in rebreather,
yes.
on a rebreather. There's people asking, can you do an episode about rebreathers? The answer is yes. We will be doing an episode about rebreathers coming up very soon.
With Georgia Hauserman.
With Georgia Hauserman, who's, do you know her role at PADI? Is she director of education at PADI?
She is their head of technical dive consulting. Wow. She is an examiner, and she's a course director. And I think she teaches, I don't want to misquote, either on 6 or 7 different rebreathers.
Yeah, so she's way better than us.
You know how much training you add just for one rebreather.
Just for one,
okay?
Yeah.
She could teach on 7, and she's an instructor trainer on most of those as well. So you're talking about, am I allowed to say badass on this show?
Absolutely.
She's incredible.
Awesome. So we're going to have her join us and talk about rebreathers and rebreather diving, because there's several of them. There are different, electronics, manuals, semi-closed, fully closed rebreathers. So we'll tackle all of that, the safety aspect of it, agencies, where to go training, all that stuff. But for this one is, people also ask, how do I get into technical diving? And when it comes to rebreathers, should I go open circuit technical first, get a bunch of experience with that before I go into closed circuit rebreathers? Some people believe that closed circuit rebreathers is something that you can't just do from just regular open water recreational.
But I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
So I want to talk about those myths or statements, I guess, that people make about when is the right time to learn rebreathers. I think we both think the same thing, which is anytime.
I think it's any time.
Yeah, because it's a completely different way of diving. You're learning how to dive again. And I mean, we saw it with Megan and Dave. We saw it with me. When you go through training, you're a pretty good diver already, and then you get on a rebreather and you're all over the place.
Brand new. You're a brand new diver. But,
yes.
but the myth that I want to take away is, look, rebreathers now are incredible. We have technology now that even 10 years ago didn't exist. So for those of you out there that say, oh my goodness, rebreathers, super dangerous. Suicidal. I think that's old news.
Yeah.
Okay? They are very, very safe as compared to years ago. The computers, the redundancy built into them, the type of breathing systems they now have unbelievably improved to allow us to do these very deep dives for a very long time while not having to really carry nearly as much gas, because we're mostly closed circuit. We're rebreathing our own air, and when we exhale, it goes into scrubbers that removes the carbon dioxide and brings back clean air again. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so I think the training now is also greatly improved compared to where it used to be. It's a very logical path that progresses like all classes from very easy skills in a confined water environment up through the open water. I don't want people to think this is just way beyond my level and so super technical, I can't do it. That's just not true anymore. And you can read the ratings on, for example, the KISS systems that we use, unbelievable safety ratings. Because the training and technology has so greatly improved.
Yeah.
However, there's always a however. I don't think you can get into rebreather diving and I want you to just plan on this, for less than a $10,000 to $12,000 range on the low side, on the absolute low side. So you need to be prepared by the time you get your certification, get the rebreather that you want, the computers that go along with it, tanks that go along with it. You're really probably closer to $12,000. I'm generalizing because some go up as high as $25,000.
Yeah, depending on the model that you want, yeah.
And then that's a whole conversation that we're going to have with Georgia Hauserman. Why one model versus the other? Why are some this price and others that price? Because there's a lot of discussion just on that.
For sure.
But this is answering your question. I think if you've done some recreational diving and you are at least a rescue diver, this is Woody's opinion and some other dive agencies' opinions.
Yeah.
I would like you to be a rescue diver because that made you think a little bit outside of your taking care of yourself. You've been educated on to not just take care of yourself when you're diving, but also take care of others. I think you're ready to jump into rebreather diving. And I haven't met anybody yet that's gone through that training with me that hasn't fallen in love with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think that if you're a brand new open water, diver, you're ready to go rebreathers. I mean, you need some practice, but I don't think you need to go tech open circuit first before you have to go rebreather open circuit or whatever, rebreather tech.
A good 50 dives and maybe you're a rescue diver.
Yeah, that
feels like the right spot, and many agencies happen to have that as their requirement as well.
Plus, I feel like around 50 dives or over 50 dives, you start getting like good at it, good at diving, enough so you can get humbled doing the training, for the rebreather, because it's going to smack you back.
A little bit
to zero.
But it's one of those things that's it's a steep, if you will, it's a steep curve.
Sure.
The first one or two dives. Wow. But then all of a sudden, it just clicks in your brain. We saw that recently with one of our students, right? Yes. The first couple were tricky but then all of a sudden, it was like a new person.
No, and
she was amazing.
All of us go through that. I was thinking to David Vigiano, who was certified before me, and he was like, I remember my first dive when I was thinking, it's like, man, what a waste of money. I just threw away all this money on this rebreather. I'm never going to learn how to do this.
Right.
And then the next day, you're just immediately better.
It just clicks. The light bulb goes on. It's like riding a bike. You sort of it just all starts to click. And then you really finally get to enjoy the rebreather where it hums, which is at about 90 or 100 feet. No instructors throwing skills at you anymore. And frankly, it's super quiet. And you're just sitting there. Your PO2 is just perfect.
Doesn't move.
Your buoyancy is perfect. And there's this total silence. And you look down and your total time to surface, you have all the time in the world. That's when all of you guys were like, this is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
But you got to be patient through the training. You got to let yourself be patient. And I promise you, as I've told everybody that I've trained, your aha moment is going to come. Just wait.
Funny moment from the West Palm Beach dives. We all come in the boat, and the Pura Vida does a great job. They have soft drinks and snacks or whatever. So we're on the surface interval that we have to do because we have open circuit divers on the boat. Everyone is talking. It's like, oh, how much air do you come up with? Like I had 500, I had 600. Like they're talking about, it's like, oh man, 480 something. Like they're talking about. And then they asked me, like they forgot that I was doing a rebreather, and he's like, so how about you? How much air do you have? And I'm like, 2,900.
Right.
The PSI left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You only used part of your air for inflation.
Yeah.
Or right on your BCD. That's about it. So you started at 3,000.
Yeah.
You had a solid 90-foot dive
for
and used 100 PSI.
Yes.
All right. That's how awesome it is.
Awesome.
It really is.
2,900.
Yeah.
I'm not switching anything. So that was great. So yeah, I think that I don't think there's a need for people to get into, like, I think that if you're already a tech diver in open circuit, a lot of the concepts that you're going to learn tech diving CCR will be good.
Yeah.
But I think you can extrapolate that to cave diving. Like if you're an open circuit cave diver, now you're going to become a CCR cave diver. I mean, a lot of the lost line procedures, all of that will apply.
The same 5 rules of cave diving will apply.
So it is beneficial, but I don't think you have to do it first. I, for one, refuse to go in a cave on open circuit.
I'll only do it on rebreather. I think it's way, way safer.
Yeah.
You have so much more time to handle a problem on a rebreather if you're in a cave.
For sure.
Way, way more time.
Even in total failure of the rebreather, like somehow it just blows up. Like the story you were telling me when the guy jumped in and screws rain on you.
I'm not going to mention the name of that brand, but all of a sudden I'm looking down and I see the metal screws raining down. I'm like, I thought it was mine, but sure enough, he was on the boat with his rebreather
in pieces,
demolished just from the entry.
Well, if that ever happens in a cave, the gas that you haven't been breathing on to that point. You just have it to exit.
That's why
you carry a ridiculous amount on top of that.
And we have each other. I'm not a big on solo diving. Some are, and they train. We all are certified to do that, but I don't do that. I won't cave dive that way at all. I always want each other.
Yeah, so it's interesting when we talk to people that believe like rebreathers are super dangerous, and for me, it's like there are things that I do in rebreathers that there's no way I do in open circuit. Like that's how comfortable I am with it. Like I think open circuit is dangerous for some of the diving that we do when it comes to when it comes to going into caves and stuff like that.
I think open circuit diving as compared to rebreather diving in any diving it's more dangerous, but you've got to be taught and train and get comfortable on the rebreather to get to that moment where you actually go to the other side where we're talking right now. Like what? Rebreathers are better for you and safer than open circuit diving.
When it comes to technical diving and technical dive training, there are several agencies out there that have training available for that. Even PADI, a lot of us start getting certified as PADI Tech 40.
SSI.
SSI has extended range certifications as well.
IANTD, TDI, SDT. I mean, there's so many of them.
There are so many agencies that have technical dive training. But to me, to be honest with me, it boils down, and we talked about this on episode 1 when we talked about agencies, it boils down to the instructor.
I think so.
If you have the right instructor, the agency doesn't really matter that much.
I totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they all really are. If you compared them side by side, these skills, they're the same skills. They all have the exact same skills.
Some agencies will have like different requirements. Like somebody will require that you have, 50 hours of diving on your rebreather before they even train you, and some other one will say you need to have 100. So depending on the agency, the bar of entry, might be higher or lower.
And rebreather configuration on some of the agencies is different. Some absolutely require a heads-up display. Some require that you have a bailout valve where you never have to remove the mouthpiece from your mouth to get onto open circuit, and some don't require those things. So that can be slightly different based on different agencies.
For sure. Yeah. So I think that, for those of you listening and thinking about like, I really want to get into this tech diving thing, I think focus more on the shop and the instructor that you're going to have someone who has credibility, talk to them, talk about their experience.
And maybe that they can dive with after they're done training. It's nice to train with an instructor that, frankly, you can continue the voyage with, that you could get to the next level with, normoxic diving. But even more importantly than that, you're going to bond when you go through that together, and you're going to want to dive together.
For sure.
So, maybe locally, somebody who if you could dive with train with an instructor that's local to you, so that you can share the journey together after that. That's I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure. You just have to be careful though, like depending on your instructor, because it can get expensive if your instructor brings, let's say, a DPV or a scooter into one of your dives and says, you want to, I just got a repair. You should go ahead and test it. And then we proceed to test it. And now we just proceeded to order
$7,000 later, where we wanted the best, not just a DPV, but we got
an expensive trip.
Randy Thornton's
subgravity reference RS DPV.
Rolls Royce DPV.
Man, I'm looking forward to that.
That thing is amazing.
Yeah, so me and Woody order DPVs right after testing Doug's DPV for like 5 minutes. We're like, this is what I want to do in my life. I don't want to swim ever.
Well, I'm not where you are on that. I still enjoy the swimming part as well. But let's say, for example, we want to explore the Oriskany.
Yes.
I mean,
unbelievable.
Typically has high current, and you can't see much of it if you're swimming. How about on that DPV where you're just able to motor from one side of the flight deck to the other?
It's awesome.
Right? It's awesome. So you're not necessarily deeper, but you're just covering more ground. Right. Boy, it's amazing for that.
But talk about technical diving. Like when we were looking at the skills that we're going to have to do in our class, because me and Woody are taking the class at the same time.
With Marissa Eckert from Hidden Worlds in High Springs, Florida.
Yep. CCR, DPV divers. right?
Cave divers.
Cave divers, yeah. But the skills were something like, was it like,
we'll be humbled.
No visibility. Yeah, no visibility. So eyes closed, black mask, whatever. Out of air, DPV's broken. Get out of the cave.
And tow each other. Like one's okay, listen. God. And all of that, by the way, while you're not silting out the bottom of the cave. So you and me will be humbled, it's gonna be awesome. Which is great. It's a 3-day, all-day course, and dude, I know Marissa's incredible.
The DPVs are like 20 kilograms, 42 pounds. They're humongous.
But they're neutral underwater.
I know.
If once weighted properly. You can weight them for fresh or salt water.
Yeah.
Right? That's part of what we're going to learn.
Yeah.
But how about when you're first just gearing up, the first moment where you got all that in the water, hooking up all your stuff. Now hook up that 42-pound bad boy and hit the road, right? But we're gonna train properly, and that's the message, that every one of these cool things that you add is just how I started this show. You're learning how to use a piece of equipment, because think about a DPV in a cave. That can get you really far back in that cave. But that could be dangerous, right? What if it breaks and now you got to bail out? You may have gone beyond your gas planning. So you got to really learn what to do in these things.
Yeah, for sure.
We will. I can't wait.
For sure. Yeah, I'm super excited about that. I think that when it comes to diving, there's always a next level. There's always something else. It never ends. Like, I want to learn how to ice dive. You just go, under ice.
Absolutely, we're going to learn that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's always something. End. There's always more things to do, and hopefully the people listening to this show get excited about it too and get pumped up. Like, I get excited. Yeah, I'm never
talking about it. We wish this TPV training was around the corner.
I wish it was tomorrow. I mean, anyway. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Hopefully we answer some questions about technical diving, how to get into them. Again, I think that the next episode, which will be about rebreathers, we'll be able to answer a lot of those questions for those of you thinking about it. It's a little bit expensive when it comes to getting into it, but I guarantee a lot of people listening to this show, if you can add how much you've paid over the years for all your open circuit stuff, it's probably going to be about what you would pay for a rebreather. At least for me, it was. I mean, I had so much stuff, and I personally love it. So hopefully we answer some questions and help people kind of make a decision and decide whether this is for them or not. If you are super happy, by the way, one of really good friend, which was one of the main reasons why I started diving. I remember when I went through my open water training, she was going through her advanced open water training, even though she had been diving for like 6 years or something. And she is perfectly happy with recreational diving. Like, she's like, I want to go down with water that is just super warm, just looking at pretty fish around like, whatever, 20 meters, 60 feet. Like, that's all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. There's a lot of people like that out there, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're not like those people, if you want to, dive longer, deeper into places that you can't just do with a regular open circuit, hopefully we point you in the right direction.
And email us, by the way, if you have questions, more specific, like what exactly would I need to do to enroll in a class? How long should I expect to be in the class? What's the requirements, and specifically on a particular rebreather and so forth.
We're happy to answer.
We can get the answers for that.
For sure.
Good show.
Good absolutely. Topic. Thanks, Woody. Glad to be back.
Thank you.
See if we can get the next one in 2 weeks to everyone, of course. And thank you everyone who reach out asking, where's the next episode? Like, I listen to you guys.
Awesome.
I love learning from you. Where is it? What are you guys doing? So here it is, next episode. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye, everybody.